that kind of interesting too?
Do you consciously mark out the word stop?
Yeah. And intentionally anyway. Yes, yeah. And I'm doing that because Richard uses that as an embedded command frequently when he puts that in his language. And it's a pattern interruption. Is the intent. You know, different people. When you're going along with this nice little process, if you could have this change for yourself so that you could stop, it tends to jar, and it's like, oh, whatever experience was there gets a little disoriented, so that whatever comes next tends to go in more completely. Because, stop, well, I'm not sure what to do next. And then the next instruction, oh, that, oh, okay, good. Phew, I have something I can do now. Tends to be how people respond. Not always. Some people are annoyed by those, which hopefully we're sensitive to. So he goes, if you could make this change for yourself so that you could stop, having already made that change, and oh, that's the thing. Okay, so having already made that change is what you get right after that disorientation of the stop. And see yourself now. This one goes, I am in the desired state, and I can also see myself that way. Both. Okay, is that enough to give you a sense of some interesting ways to play around with verbs and resources and so on? Okay. Now, ready for some action? For some even more action? Here's what I'd like you to do. Yeah, we'll do... You'll do this in pairs so that it goes really quickly. And make a little chart that goes past, present, future. And goes limit, resource. And each of you will think of a limit and a resource, ones that go together, a matched pair. And then, so if Peter and I are in a team, then each of us will think of this, and we might give each other a code word for it, or if you prefer, just say limit and resource. That's fine. Or just, you don't want to spend any time gathering information is the key here. We just want to emphasize playing around with the verbs. Then, what Peter will do for me is he'll put a 1 somewhere and a 2 somewhere and a 3 somewhere in this little chart. So, random, doesn't matter. So he'll put a 1, 2, and a 3. We'll see if I got a challenging one. Then my job, he'll give me this thing. My job is to say something to him where I move through time in this way, whatever way he's specified. My job is not to figure it out ahead of time. I will just open my mouth and find out what words emerge. Sometimes they can be very interesting that way, and more fun than if you plan it all out ahead of time. That would be work. So I got present limit. Oh, I made it easy. Well, I'll do another one after this. Okay, present limit. So you have this limitation, Peter, and I'm curious to know, now I go resource in the past, I'm curious to know, now that you think about it, how many times you notice that you've already had exactly the resource that you need, so that you will, I'm going to use certainty in the future, or I'll either use will or will have, so that 3 days from now, you will have had much experience noticing and appreciating how that particular resource transforms what was a problem. So you see how I just used that as something to guide me through time? Now, shall we try it the opposite way? Let's make it hard. See if I can do it. And now, oh, by the way, very quickly, Peter just noticed, how does this go in? And then if he has something to tell me, we don't want the feedback to go on and on, because the emphasis we want on just playing. But if he immediately knows, oh, if you add this one little phrase, that makes it right for me. And he can tell me. Okay. Yeah.
This was really nice from 1 to 2. Just guided me. And then from 2 to 3, there was no, you just said, you had this, so you will have it in the future, and there was no...
You wanted more bridging. Okay, good. So that's great. Now I can bridge it a little more, if I can still remember what I said. So you have this limit, which, of course, I'm sure sensitizes you to noticing now the times when you've already had exactly the resource that you want to have. And how, having had it, gives you an ease with which you will be using it in exactly the right situation in the future. Okay, and now we can see he was right. he knew, and that made a big difference in his nonverbals. So thank you. Great. So now let's find out if I can do it the other way. 1, 2, 3. Future resource. And part of the purpose of this, by the way, is to end up with things that you'd never do, usually, because sometimes out of that, doing things that seem really strange or weird or like totally unuseful, sometimes out of, well, is there a way I can make this useful too? Sometimes out of that comes an interesting new form, and it certainly expands our flexibility to do that. The goal is not necessarily to get any kind of dramatic change, although if it happens, you don't have to stop it. But the goal is just to expand our range and to enjoy doing it, to have a good time. So future resource. Now, I'm wondering, Peter, when it is that you will have that resource that you know has made a difference for you in so many other areas already. So that, see, this is the real challenge, is there? Now I'm going to have to do that hypothetical. So that things are different now, even as you think about it, than they would have been had you not incorporated that resource. I'm cheating a bit. Than they would be. Things are different now than they would be. So what I'm going for, since we've ended up with the limit in the present, I'm going to have to do it hypothetical present, because I don't want to actually place it in the real present. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so go ahead and cheat all you want, and as long as you have a good time doing it, and then of course get the brief feedback and briefly change it, and then we switch, and Peter gets to do it, and I'm going to start putting numbers down here and let him go for it. If 3 seems like too big of a stretch, ask your partner to start with 2. Start with 2 things, and then I'll just link them in some way that makes some kind of sense to me, or not. But I'll just do it. And if there are any of you for whom 3 isn't enough of a challenge, you can go for 4. Okay? So pairs will only take about 5 to 7 minutes on this, total. So any reports or questions that came out of your experiment? So this is really nice. They noticed that it was very difficult to bridge all the way from past to future, that was common for them as well as for Peter, and that something that makes it easier is to put in the present in between. Okay. Now, something else that's interesting is that and to be sensitive to, is different people go through time differently and deal with time differently. And for some people, it is much easier to find resources in the past. For other people, it's impossible. And it's much easier to find them in the future. I dealt with one woman once who, they were trying to do a simple change history in the practitioner training and find a resource in her past of when she'd ever felt. She wanted confidence to take the practitioner test. At that time, we actually had official tests. And see how much progress we've had since then. So you just don't have one. We eliminate having it. And because really to have it's more the school model rather than what really fits for NLP. But anyway, she wanted confidence in carrying out her NLP procedures that she knew. And they came up to me and said, we're having a hard time finding a resource for her. We've asked, when have you had it? And she just says, never. So I went over there. I had plenty of confidence that I could find it in her past. But boy, was I wrong. I said, well, surely there's been some time that you've been really confident. Like, for example, you step out of bed in the morning and you're just confident that the floor will be there beneath your feet. I thought, we'll go for something like this. We're sure to get it. And she goes, no, I've never had that experience. And watching her nonverbals, I believed her. I found it totally credible.
You wanted a bit of a sense of humor with it.
So, my goodness, got what you wanted, even though I said we weren't supposed to do that. Did anyone else find that they were stuck with their outcome? Okay, and an interesting exercise can be to take any outcome that you have for yourself and do it yourself. Go through the whole set of categories with an outcome of your own. And it's a nice way to increase your own flexibility at the same time that it's useful to you. So did you have something you wanted to?
One of the things that I noticed was that when I was receiving statements that were the presupposition conflicted with my current state, I would just go, I'm sort of, I don't know, brain gas or something. when the presupposition was that I would move towards that, that really paced much better.
Nice comment. So as we presuppose more and more those things that are supportive of our outcomes and the other person's outcomes and what we've agreed to, that's something that's important to track. Am I presupposing things that this person will be able to look, listen around, and go, nope, not true? Because that will get them to throw out the statement. And so what you want to presuppose are those things that one cannot deny. One can't go, oh, it's not true. So that continuum is a way to begin doing that. Anything I can say is not true of me now, I can't say it won't be true of me 5 minutes from now. Not with certainty. Who knows? So, yeah, nice observation. Another frame I think is already here, but just to be really sure, is particularly relevant in the business context. And that is, I think an underlying presupposition I have is that to be effective in the long run over time, the things that I presuppose need to be things that serve both of us, that are mutually serving. It's not, if I walk into a business relationship and I start using my fancy NLP presuppositions to presuppose everything I want, but the other person hasn't agreed to, what's going to happen? Yeah, major rapport loss time. I may think that I'm real sharp and the other person is just not getting it, but basically I won't get my outcomes if I take that approach, usually. Or if I do, what's likely to happen? If I can push someone up against the wall that way and run presuppositions and get something to happen that they don't perceive is in their best interest, then what's going to happen? Buyer's remorse, yes, in some form or another. So the checking for mutual agreement is so important in what we presuppose. And probably all of us have had some experiences of the contrary. I know this has occurred to me occasionally when someone walks in and, yes, their presuppositions are good. It's just it has nothing to do with anything I'm interested in. So, yeah. Okay, any other comments, thoughts, learnings? And when in the business context, in any context, when what we presuppose is really what the person wants deeply, they'll appreciate it. They'll appreciate any assistance. It's just a way of making it easy, not throwing in obstacles. So if I'm a teacher and I'm working with a student and I presuppose that this student has resources already and will be learning more and more effectively, that student's going to appreciate it tremendously. So, yeah, here we go. Counterexample. One of my favorite examples of this comes from Uncle Milty. Milton Erickson used to think of all kinds of interesting things to call therapy. And he once had a woman come to see him who was very I was trying to find this case example, and I couldn't find it in Uncommon Therapy. If any of you, by the way, know where I can find this specific example, let me know. Because I wanted to make sure my details were accurate. You'll get them as I remember it. So this woman makes an appointment. She's extremely overweight. And I think she was so afraid of coming in that she almost couldn't even get herself to make the appointment. She considered herself so objectionable because of her weight. She thought this was a terrible thing. And her complaint when she finally got there was that, well, I'm so ugly that no man will have me. And she wanted to get married and have children. Major goal. So Uncle Milton didn't have to install that one. He did install that one, and everyone else who didn't already have it. Some of us know. I must pause for a story about that. We have a friend, an NLP friend, who came to all the workshops in the early days, and he had been to see Milton Erickson also.